welcome everyone to our first professional development webinar in 2024. So chart your path to success, becoming an empowered and goal-oriented educator. In this webinar, we will learn the art of crafting impactful professional development goals. And we will be considering the 2024 professional development tracks that we will be discussing in a minute. And during that, we will explore the importance of goal settings in personal and career growth and gain practical strategies to align goals with teaching aspirations. But first, to ensure a smooth and enjoyable webinar experience for all participants, let's follow certain guidelines. So I cannot see my screen, but thank you so much. I was about to say, please, next slide. So please keep your microphone muted throughout the webinar. This will help maintain an organized and distraction-free environment. If you have any questions, please use the chat box to submit them, and we will review all the questions and address them as we can, as much as we can. The webinar will be recorded for future reference and for those who could not attend today's session. The recorded webinar, along with the slides and every resource that we offer today, will be distributed in the PD2Go newsletter this month. Today's facilitator is Professor Joni Mitchell, Light Center Professional Development Specialist. And before getting started, I want to thank her for facilitating today's session. And Joni, we can get started. If you can introduce yourself to the audience.
Thank you, Eve. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Yes, you do have my bio on the screen. My name is Joni Mitchell. I have been an online educator, trainer, learning developer, instructional designer. I have, this is a decade, but I've actually been in the game for going on 2 decades in higher education. My background is in English and sociology. I've taught abroad, trained abroad, and I love the application of adult learning theory and just creating these inclusive learning spaces like the ones we like to have here at Westcliff University. I love professional development initiatives. I've designed, delivered workshops, new orientation programs, faculty development programming, especially for online teaching, working with our non-traditional students. As you know, here at Westcliff University, we have quite a few non-traditional students. And so before I was in teaching, I actually served in Northern California. If you're familiar with the Los Rios Community College District up in Sacramento, I worked in that professional development office for several years before going abroad and working with faculty and teachers all over the world. So as it says here, I am definitely committed to diversity and inclusion, and a huge part of that is how we plan, set our goals, and really develop professional development programming that is impactful to our campus. So I am here in the Westcliff University Light Center Professional Development Office. And yeah, we're just here to drive forward those institutional goals. So just thinking about the agenda today, where this workshop kind of came from, being the start of the year, being a new year, Eve and I were working on our professional development initiatives, planning those workshops out, all of the offerings that we're going to be showing you today in our workshop. And we thought about how do we make this really impactful? And so part of that is thinking about what is empowerment in education? If we want empowering goals, what is empowerment in education? And then also thinking about individual, institutional, all of those goals. A lot of times we get caught up in, okay, what is the goals of our students or our classroom? So we'll be looking at, setting professional development goals for ourselves that are really aligned with the things we care about. We'll talk about strategies for achieving your professional development goals. We'll go over a little bit of how we map these things out. How do we set up practices that really help drive our goals forward and encourage us to keep pursuing our goals? Because sometimes we get a little tripped up when it comes to pursuing our goals. And finally, we'll take a look at the Light Center Professional Development Initiatives for 2024 as part of your professional development goal setting. So this is a very personal practice. I always like to say that. I love talking about goals. It's one of my favorite things to talk about with faculty and staff in higher education, because I think it's such a huge part of what drives forward our work, our day-to-day work. So first, let's take a look at empowerment in education. So very quickly, I have quite a few of these chit chat in the chat questions. I want this to be a bit more interactive. I know sometimes when you attend webinars, it's a lot of, talking head. We're all on Zoom, we're all in our own spaces, but I would really love to hear from many of you who are here with us this morning. Um, how do you define empowerment in education? Either in your life or in education, where does that come from? So please, if you get a chance, do pop some ideas into the chat. I would love to see those, read those, share them with your colleagues here so we can start to kind of think about this. So oftentimes when we talk about empowerment in the context of education, we're talking about our students. We're talking about, the institution's goals, the department's goals, maybe the division's goals, but we don't necessarily always think about our own goals and what would make our goals empowered ones. And so I've got a few things here to think about. First is kind of thinking about autonomy. Um, when we as educators have empowered goals, when we feel empowered, a lot of times we'll see that we feel we have some autonomy in our work. We can make decisions. We get to apply different teaching methods and we get to test things and see what works. And that gives us confidence. And so whether you've been an educator for few months, a few years, several decades, you need to consistently be building confidence in your abilities and in your decision making when it comes to your classroom. We also want to kind of think about skill enhancement. How are we learning and applying new skills? And that enhances our overall class as well. And that enhances our students' experience. We want to think about all of these elements in the impact on our personal being as educators, as well as with our students. And so when we think about our teaching methods, we're often following this set of guidelines. And that's really great. And hopefully you will all be learning more about that in the coming weeks. Just to give you a little bit of foreshadowing ahead, we're going to be having some offerings that will help you to be thinking about that. But I also want you to think beyond those guidelines of how your approach feels empowered in the classroom. Whether that is, in relation to autonomy, creativity, the skills, your teaching styles. We could think quite a bit about those things. So why empowerment matters for educators. And so this is something that, again, institutionally, sometimes we're not having these conversations. Sometimes we're not thinking about what is it, why do we want our educators to feel empowered? Why do we want them to, have a sense of purpose in their work beyond getting the work done, beyond getting our students graded? And a lot of times, we underestimate some of the benefits of having empowered goals, and so we don't take the time to set them. But empowerment in education and really having empowered goals matters for quite a few reasons. Feeling empowered can lead to higher job satisfaction. It definitely continues to foster professional growth. Those of you who attend our webinars on a regular basis, you're not just developing your skills, you're making it a habit to consistently grow yourself professionally. And that's a really great thing. It obviously improves student engagement. The numbers show this. We know that the more empowered a faculty member feels, the more focused on their goals, that trickles directly to the students and the student experience. And that's what we want to do. And then also, it encourages innovative teaching. We really want our teachers to be practicing innovative practices that, bring technology to the classroom, bring, new tools that we're showing our students that, we don't just have information for them, we have methods for them. We are specialized in our teaching. And then, of course, we also have an opportunity to build supportive community. And so this is a really great perk. I have said, you probably have heard me say it in other workshops if you've seen me talk before. Here at Westcliff University, we offer so much professional development programming for our adjunct faculty. And that is very special. Not all institutions do. Not, a lot of institutions are primarily focused on their full-time faculty and not so much for their adjuncts. And so the fact that we can offer supportive communities and we'll talk about some options for that a little bit later, to our adjunct faculty is really a wonderful thing. So really quick, want you to pop over to the chat. I see a few comments in here, so we'll check back here. So thinking about empowerment, the ability to make educational decisions without restrictions. Yeah. A lot of times we feel really restricted. We come into an institution, the classes are formed for us, the curriculum's there. And one of the gifts here that we have at Westcliff University is the ability to impact even pre-made classes to a degree. But we'll have more conversations around that when we talk about our professional development offerings. There are a lot of ways that we can be flexible in what sometimes feel like restrictions. Academic freedom, that's a huge topic. That's a whole workshop, actually. That's great. Taking full position in academic lifestyle, controlling and monitoring the sharing of beneficial knowledge for my students. Yes, that's really, yeah, we want to be thinking about the impact we have on our students and how do we control that, but also, and monitor it. I love that combination, controlling and monitoring, because that means monitoring kind of to me, and tell me, Mark, if this is kind of along the lines of what you're thinking here. Monitoring a lot of times feels um, it's that follow up. It's that checking in. The word isn't coming to me, but it's that ability to actually, make sure that this is working. Like, how are we making sure that this is what's best for our students? And then William said the ability to get senior staff to provide support in obtaining current resources. Resources are so important for empowerment. That's a really good insight there. Thank you. And of course, because this is a webinar and Eve and I are both in the professional development office, we are going to be kind of taking some notes as well, because we're always thinking about how we can support you. So if you are noticing that between the lines, that's definitely true as well. We want your thoughts. We want almost every interaction we have with you all, we want to be able to get your feedback. So do always give that to us as much as possible. So next chit chat question though, before I go on to the next slide, can you share an instance where you felt empowered as an educator? Can you share a time when you didn't? Okay. Don't have to name names. Doesn't even have to be this institution, but if you have some stories that you want to throw into the chat, please do, or let us know about. So let's talk about setting our professional development goals. We do have a process. I have a process that I'm going to share here today that I've worked with, quite a few in the past, faculty members, staff, just, I mean, really folks in general. Setting goals is so important. And so, we know that we can, when we comes to professional development goals or really any goal, we want to hone in on a process, and having a process is it is a very important part of that. Excuse me. So first, you know, professional development goals, you have an element of lifelong learning. And so when we're thinking about professional development, sometimes, it can get really big and overwhelming because it's, how do I want to do this? How do I want to pursue that? A lot of times, I'm sure many of you, when you talk with your students about their professional goals, it can feel very big. And that sometimes comes from the fact that we are looking at something that we don't talk enough about, which is lifelong learning. This is a process. This is an ongoing process. A lot of times when we're talking about goals, we're thinking about that one target or that one thing. I want you to think about both. Yes, there's goals that are that one target, but there's also the element of just having this revision and knowing that you're pursuing something, and that can often come as a result of lifelong learning. So this is a cornerstone for educators as well, right? It's really any professional career, but certainly as educators, we want to make sure that we're growing and developing. It allows us to keep up with professional trends. And so staying updated on the latest trends in education, including, teaching methods, technologies, educational research, the application of teaching methods uh, in different styles of classrooms here. We have different styles of classroom here at Westfield University. So thinking about those methods is a really important part of our professional development. And then enhancing our teaching skills. How are we enhancing them? Sometimes it isn't learning a new skill overall. Sometimes it's taking what we're already doing and building on it a little bit. And then finally, personal professional fulfillment. So ongoing professional development, almost always, say I always say always. It always leads to personal satisfaction. When we feel good about our careers, so often we have that sense of achievement, and it can turn into a positive experience for our lives. Think of how many hours a week you give to your profession. whether that's to students individually, whether that's to looking over a class, whether that's to grading and giving feedback. It's a lot of time. And so when we have professional fulfillment and we know that we are, working on ourselves in that area, it can impact our personal fulfillment as well. And then finally, of course, cannot be overestimated that we have an impact on student success. That is really what we're trying to get to. So your commitment as an educator to develop yourself professionally it translates directly into those improved teaching strategies and that positive impact on our students and their success, right? So I have here some examples of professional development goals, and I'm going to slow down and just kind of spend a little time on this slide because it's such an important part of thinking about this process of establishing goals, establishing empowered goals, feeling good about our goals, and how we can incorporate that with our professional development um, tasks and activities this year. So thinking about some of these goals, we want to be intentional. Sometimes we kind of pinpoint something right away. And there's nothing wrong with that because sometimes when you're setting a goal, you zoom in and then you zoom back out. But these are really some overarching areas that I want you to be thinking about. So improved integration of technology in the classroom. That's a big one, right? Like, what are we talking about there? That's huge. That's institutionally, that's huge. Individually, that's massive. What are we talking about there? This is really talking about having a goal of being proficient in integrating technology and into your learning experiences. This is really talking about being increasing your knowledge on digital tools and resources. Uh, this is also talking a little bit about, how you are efficient with technology. What tools are you using? And we'll talk about a few options, here in a bit. But this is your ability, and again, because this is personal goals, empowered goals, especially are personal ones, even though they are professional. Um, in embracing new technologies. How well do you embrace new technologies in the classroom? Um, how well do the technologies that you're embracing enhance your teaching and learning experiences in your classroom? Utilizing those digital tools, whether that be interactive lessons, sharing online resources, learning how to use technology. We spent a lot of time last year, of course, and we will this year as well, looking at AI. AI is changing every week, if not every day. How are we incorporating that? And when I say that, I know sometimes that feels really, really big, but when we're thinking about that professional development goal, I'm going to show you how to break that down. So this is just one area. And then, of course, staying up to date, which many of you already do, on the latest trends and using technology in the classroom. Another big goal for professional development when it comes to education is developing inclusive teaching practices. So how can we create, and many of you already have great teaching practices. You might be reading this and going, but I already do that. How can we do it more? Remember that word enhancing. How are we enhancing these goals? Sometimes it's not about a new goal. Sometimes it's just about, enhancing what you already have, or making it more efficient, or making it fit better with who you are now, or how you teach now, or what our students currently need now. How are students different? Those of you who've been in the classroom for 10, 15, 20 years, you know that we have different students now than we had 20 years ago, right? So this can look a little bit like obviously catering to diverse learning needs, understanding and implementing different teaching strategies specifically aimed at creating an inclusive environment. This is talking about when you think about this, diverse range of learning styles and needs, implementing strategies for equity and inclusion, your language, your feedback style. There's lots of areas that we can talk about, and we'll be, sharing with you some offerings this year on where you can go, oh, that actually might be interesting. That might help me with my inclusion. And of course, engaging in professional learning that incorporates ideas from different cultural learning and learning backgrounds, but that extends beyond even just really all areas of diversity when we're talking about inclusion. This is another big one: enhancing subject matter expertise. Now, some of you, many of you, you will attend workshops, conferences, but this is all about deepening your knowledge of your subject area. How how do you want to do that in 2024, right? This may involve, a certificate. I was talking to somebody last couple weeks ago who already has a PhD, and they're like, oh, but I really want to learn in this area, but I don't want to go back to school. And it's like, oh, don't. Have you heard of this organization or this organization? They offer professional certificates. If you want a credential, if you actually just want a class or a workshop, we actually have quite a few different topics in Spoke. Have you looked at our webinar offerings, our previous webinars? We offer quite a few classes every month, but there's so many options for thinking about how you want to enhance your subject matter expertise. It doesn't mean having to get another degree certificate, although it can certainly if you want to. This can also mean engaging in self-studies, right? There's something that you for yourself know that you want to carve out some time to study this year. And so this is important to think about, because sometimes, seasoned faculty, we're not thinking about like how are we engaging in that, or we're so used to going to the same conference every year. We're so used to talking to the same colleagues, and there's nothing wrong with that, but how are we enhancing it, right? Leadership and management skills. So for those of you, I've talked to a few people here at Westcliff, and certainly in higher ed in general, that want to learn more about how we develop skills of leadership in the classroom and outside of the classroom. So that could be classroom management. That doesn't have to be a managerial position. That can also include classroom management. How is your presence in the classroom? Understanding how you engage with colleagues, with students, with people in your department. What are some areas that you want to kind of learn to take more action in professionally in these areas? And that also kind of fits well with soft skills as well. Sometimes we're called soft skills, sometimes called essential skills or traits, or power skills is a new one that I've heard lately. But this is an area that you maybe want to do some reflection on and think about what are you really great at in this area? What are some skills that you feel, wow, I'm really, solid in that? And what are some skills that maybe you feel like, I'd like to work on this in 2024. How can I do that? Right. And so this can be everything from, critical thinking, problem solving, obviously communication, and then specifically how maybe you want to deliver a webinar for the professional development office this year. Maybe you want to think about how you present information in a class. Maybe you want to reflect a bit on how you engage. There's a lot around communication, obviously, when we talk about soft skills, but we can certainly talk about areas of things like problem solving. I mean, many of you know what soft skills are, but have you done a deep dive to think about what areas will actually help you develop professionally and have a really great impact on your students? This can also include how you collaborate. When's the last time as an adjunct? Sometimes as an adjunct professor, we don't really get a lot of opportunities to collaborate with others. Maybe that means serving on that committee this year, or, organizing something within your department, talking to your department chair and saying, what can I be a part of? And so, this helps us in our own life to be intentional about our group work. So then if we ask students to do group work, or committees or volunteer work or whatever the case may be, we've developed in that area, and we can actually pass that knowledge onto our students and that ability onto our students. Next one is engaging in professional communities. This is a little bit different than the soft skill I was just talking about in terms of collaboration. This is specific active learning communities. I know that you guys, you all have actually done professional learning communities before here at Westcliff. We're going to be having some for you this year. But this is about really being intentional about joining a learning community that has a specific goal, and being a part of that community, whether that be showing up to meetings, exchanging emails, working in an online space like Slack or Google Chat or another kind of space, and just actively engaging towards a goal that typically results in some sort of product, project, a professional outcome, if you will. And so this is a very intentional kind of learning community that if you kind of have this as one of your goals, you're going to see quite a bit of development in a variety of areas. Improved assessment strategies. This is another one we're going to be talking about it's kind of worked into quite a bit of our areas. You'll see when Eve presents our tracks that we're going to have this year, our professional development tracks. But it's important to take the time to explore strategies that are not only for um, measuring student learning, but also help inform your teaching practices. So I know sometimes when I say assessment, professors will say something like, oh, well, I use rubrics in the classroom. Okay, great. How are you using them? Why, I fill them out. When's the last time that you got into the nitty gritty practice of how you're assessing students? The methods you're using, is it measuring their progress? Thinking about the techniques, um, looking over the techniques in the classroom and maybe offering up some feedback as well. Um, what is the feedback for the campus, I mean, but also feedback for your students as well? What is your method for developing your feedback? Do you find that when you are grading, for instance, it's taking a long time? Well, do you have a comment bank that you use for grading students? There's lots of individual little practices that if we just look at this big overarching goal, we might think about how are we going to improve in that area? And you don't have to have the answers to that right now. I'm just giving you some overarching professional development goals here. So let me check the chat here. There's a comment here. Please accept my greetings. Good morning. As per the time zone, academic writing courses in Kathmandu, TPD, Teachers Professional Development, is one of my research interests. So I have been exploring my research paper, which is being published in Springer Education Journal. Ooh, congratulations. That's fantastic. Well, welcome and thank you for being here. Let's see. Dr. McConnell says, may I add setting your goals when setting professional development goals, consider using SMART method. Oh, I will get to that. Yes, I'm glad you brought that up. That's actually one of, but you will see that on a slide in a minute here. Usually when making goals, we tend to get off the path. We will be talking about that. Great. I'm glad you brought that up. But before we do, chit chat in the chat. I would love for you all to pop in there. What is one professional goal? Remember, this is the big goals. Okay, just one area here that you are thinking, or one that you're thinking about for yourself. Maybe it's not on this list. Maybe it doesn't fit into any of these categories that you're interested in pursuing in 2024. Please tell us in the chat one professional development goal, either listed here or one you are thinking about pursuing in 2024. While we're thinking about that, I want you to think a little bit more, a little bit farther with this same question. What do you think you will gain from achieving that goal? And what will others gain from you achieving that goal? Okay. This is a big part of achieving our goals is thinking about that outcome. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. Dr. McConnell also said, I'm taking my 4th master's degree and starting to write a book about technology acceptance modeling. That's amazing. That is awesome. Congratulations. We would love to hear more about that. That's going to be a very fascinating book. Are you doing that specifically in education, or is that more of like on just in your on your professional side? What we say you're outside of academia activities, technology acceptance modeling. So I see some goals popping in. Professor Duwaldi said, yes, Professor Joni, I'm working on mentoring and success story sharing, the part of TPD research. Fantastic. Dr. Delfino said, improved integration of technology in the classroom and integration of research and instruction are my goals for 2024. Fantastic. That's going to have a massive impact on your students, right? You're going to learn those skills and that's going to feel really good and you're going to feel accomplished. And that's what we want. That's one of the big benefits of empowered goals. But then it's also going to trickle down and your students are going to have an amazing experience in the classroom from you learning more about technology and being able to integrate that technology. The degrees in data analytics to increase what I can pass on to the students. Yes, it always comes back to our students. Dr. Hager said, improving integration of technology in the classroom. I think it will increase engagement with the classroom, especially due to the diverse student body. Yeah, I think it will empower our students. I read a very interesting article the other day. I should have actually included it in here that talked about just the impact of technology. We know it's making society move faster, but it's also making like our student populations, our generations are starting to have a little bit more diversity within them as a result. So, we have, I'm not going to act like I'm a completely a scholar on this. I'm not, but it was the article was actually talking about, if you have a millennial, um, that's a big group if you've ever actually looked at the dates that that covers. But then within there, you have your Facebook millennials and your Instagram, more Instagram millennials, if you will. This is just an example using social media, but it's true across all tools and quite a few forms of technology in terms of what we're used to, what people in that age group are used to, and then how that impacts the student coming into the classroom. Because the different ways that that technology and interacting with that technology changes individuals in the way that we interact with society. Okay. So coming right up, just like Dr. McConnell said, thinking about the SMART goals. And so this is actually a graphic from Spoke, from our Light Center here. Let us know in the chat. Tell us in the chat if you've heard of SMART goals. This is such an important part of um, setting goals, of achieving goals, of keeping track of goals, of revising goals. This is the kind of the I don't want to say the canon, if you will, when it comes to goal setting. This is the overall practice that we really want to be thinking about. So SMART goals, they are specific. You want to use clear, direct language to understand exactly what you want to improve upon. They are measurable. Okay. That action needs to result. So, for instance, if you say, "Oh, I want to be better with integrating technology," is it measurable? No, it's a really nice big overarching goal. Now, as we start to break out those big overarching goals into those SMART goals, I want you to be thinking about, how many tools do you want to learn? How many tools do you want to learn about this month? How many articles? You have a goal each month to read a certain number of articles. Some people have a goal to read a certain number of books. Um, Keeping that number in mind, keeping your goal measurable. Sometimes individuals are reluctant to do this, in my experience, because they're worried about what happens if you don't hit that measurable number. Nothing. Nothing happens. Nobody comes and yells at you. Nobody gets upset with you. You are still amazing, and you are still taking care of your students. But what happens is you get to go and revise that goal, and you get to think about, okay, why didn't I hit my mark? If I wanted to try 2 new apps the first quarter of the year, that's my technology goal, and I'm logging it and I'm doing these other steps that I'm about to share with you, and I don't get to do that. I don't hit that mark, right? How can I improve it? What happened in my day to day? What was going on? Is it achievable? Now this requires some forethought, right? Is it achievable? When you look at your schedule, when you look at, if you have the goal of trying out 2 new apps a month, right? Whether they're related to AI, whether they're related to data analysis, whatever the case may be, you know, how long do you want to spend doing it? That's measurable. How long do you want to spend playing with that app? 30 minutes a week, 2 hours a month, however you're going to track it. And then, is it achievable? When you look at all of the classes you're teaching, all of your responsibilities, you're doing research, you're writing papers, you're producing, maybe we have some faculty members who write grants. Is it attainable with the schedule you have? And be fair to yourself. And if not, then change the goal. It's your personal goal. It's meant to make you feel empowered. Uh, Relevant. Is the goal aligned with your personal um, the outcome that you want? And is it aligned with the university wide goal? Now, when I think about this, sometimes when I'm working with faculty, some of you here actually came to my portfolio workshop last month. And if you haven't seen that and you're still interested in that, we do have that on Spoke. It's also probably in your email, one of the PD to go newsletters from last month, from last year, if you will. But thinking about what's relevant, sometimes if your overarching goal is that you want to achieve a certain number of classes, say as an adjunct. I want to be able to teach at 2 or 3 campuses. What is thinking about the type of campuses that you want, and then that you would like to teach at, excuse me, and then considering what they want. So that is going to give you a test for relevance, right? When you're producing work in your portfolio. Okay, let me backtrack. If you know that you want to, for instance, add more classes to your schedule that you are teaching, and you're thinking about where you want to teach, and one of your goals is to improve your portfolio, you will want to think about what is relevant to you in that goal and what is relevant to the institutions that you want to work at. And that will help guide that goal and keep it smart, right? Now I want to teach at X university. I know that this department cares about Y. I'm going to try to um, publish a journal, one journal. It's measurable, right? Time bound. Each goal has a deadline. During the goal, like revising the curriculum, if you have curriculum or excuse me, supplemental materials that you're adding into the classroom, what is your timeline on that? Including more. Oh, let me think. If you wanted a goal of, for instance, I'm going to go back to learning technology because that's a really good one. If you were to make that measurable and actually want to measure, okay, how am I learning new technology? How am I applying my time? By what deadline? Set that deadline. I find that monthly and quarterly deadlines work great because they're easy to reflect on. People are less likely to beat themselves up about it, right? If you give yourself a weekly goal and a week goes by and you're like, I didn't get to that goal. But if you give yourself a monthly goal and at the end of the week you go, oh, wow, I haven't done that at all this month and I still have 2 weeks left in the month, right? So give yourself some breath, but definitely set yourself a deadline. Let's see. Professor Duwadi said, "Is in your observation, how does ELT practitioner use smart TPD techniques to enhance their career in your workplace?" That's a big question. Could you please share shortly, if you do not mind? Let's talk about that one offline. I'd be interested to know a bit more about your research and kind of the direction that you are going with that. Um, Immediately what just popped into my mind, actually I have an article that you may or may not already have, but that I may want to share, that I'll want to share with you. I'll have to go back and look for that. Dr. McCoy says, goal random. I want to continue excuse me, you guys, I'm so sorry. Leveraging my understanding of my place in AI. Ooh, how can you see my students work through the use of AI? Who's in the assignments? That is so good. Yes, maybe you have a goal of understanding AI. Maybe you want to, if that's your goal, right? Overarching goal, integration of technology. And I'm sure we have some other ideas. If you have some ideas on some feedback here in the chat, either for Dr. Duwadi or Dr. McCoy, please do pop those in. With some of these questions, I know that we collectively have a lot of knowledge in these areas. So please do pop in those ideas. Um, Making that goal smart, Dr. McCoy, might look like your approach. So depending on where you are with understanding AI, I think a lot of us are still in those early stages of reading articles and trying to understand information. We want to kind of give ourselves a lot of space to kind of uh, and of course AI is changing all the time. I could be wrong. It could be that, I know we have quite a few people in the College of Technology here, and so you all might have some more information than some of us when it comes to approaching that. But tighten it around kind of that measurable goal and how much time you're going to give to it. Because AI is one of those things that we can fall into. I've certainly been thinking about its impact on my students and how I want to integrate it as well. So that's a really good one. And then Dr. McConnell said, another tip is to always share your goals with others. Yes, they can help keep you on track. So we're going to talk about that very quickly, about 20 minutes left here. Strategies for achieving your professional development goals. So first, I always recommend taking that big goal that we talked about, the overarching goal, and breaking it down into 2 or 3 or more SMART goals underneath it. Prioritize those goals. Concentrate on what you feel will significantly impact your teaching effectiveness the fastest, right? Sometimes when we're going after goals, if we can get that fast win, we feel really good. But then how do we stay on track? We do that by breaking down these goals and kind of giving ourselves the manageable actions that we can incorporate into our habits. Habits are really important. I could do a whole workshop on habits, but that's a big part of it. Keeping those action steps, set deadlines. Okay, again, we talked about having timely goals, right? This can be fun, mini deadlines where you check in with yourself, you put a little post-it note, you put a little reminder in your calendar. It does not have to be complicated. Okay. Visualize your success. Now, a lot of times we talk about using imagery, visualization. Some people like vision boards. Some people like to draw pictures. Some people like to put a picture on their wall, print a picture out on their wall, whatever that looks like for you. One of the important aspects, and this has come out in quite a bit of research, is when you're visualizing your success, also visualize your challenges and how you will overcome those challenges. I could do a whole workshop on visualization. It's one of my favorite topics when it comes to achieving goals. Eve's in the room. Maybe we will one time. Uh, Also, review your goals regularly. Stay the course to look at those goals. Certainly, we want to make sure that we are reviewing those goals as well. Tracking your progress. Let's talk about it. Okay. So tracking your progress, that's where I was, I think that's where I left off. So I was talking about the fact that there are so many different tools that you can use when it comes to tracking your progress. I would not make it overcomplicated. If you are in Google, there is a tool called Google Keep. You can go in and put notes on there. It's really great. I love the way it kind of pops up and you can put it away. I have worked with faculty and staff who will put things into like a Word document or a journal, and that's useful too. It's pretty much whatever you're comfortable with. But I do recommend trying out a tool like Google Keep or Evernote only because you can set reminders in those tools. Okay, specifically calendar notes, reminders. So as you're thinking about your goals in January, maybe you put a little reminder for yourself in June, or maybe you put a reminder for yourself in March, right? And just something to kind of flag yourself. Reflect regularly. Okay, this is a big one. We want to make sure that we're taking the time to enjoy our success, right? And also look for areas where we can improve. Schedule that, okay? Give yourself a weekly or monthly, again, I prefer monthly and quarterly window of time to kind of ponder some areas of growth for yourself. Adjust your strategies. You might have to modify some approaches. Again, this is not about beating yourself up. I have worked with numerous people who are really not into goal setting because they feel like, well, what happens if I don't achieve that goal? Again, nothing. You just get to revise it. You get to adjust. You get to reflect. Actually, I shouldn't say nothing. A lot of really wonderful things happen when you don't meet your goal, just not the goal itself. Okay. And then celebrate your success. Celebrate it with individuals, right? And Dr. McConnell said, sharing those goals, right? This is where you get to um, come back to those same groups of sometimes we have accountability partners, or maybe it's our best friend or our spouse or a colleague and say, hey, this is what I'm doing this year. And then you get to share that success with them and celebrate that. As humans, we love rewards, right? And so, when we're little, we want the sticker, we want the cookie, we want the piece of candy, whatever the reward may be. Give yourself a reward ahead of time, that gives yourself that pat on the head, give yourself permission for that. Or let your colleague, friend, spouse, oh, sorry, meeting summaries on here. Let them know, once I achieve this goal, we're going to go do this, right? Plan it, plan the way you want to celebrate that. Now, this is what I find interesting. A lot of times, those of you, I mean, we're all professionals, you've have so many achievements. So many of these you've already done to some degree. Okay, using tech tools to track progress on something, on a project maybe, or adjusting a strategy when it isn't working, either in the classroom or in your life. Maybe you take a new route to work, right? Which of these steps do you find you already do to some degree? So pop into the chat, tell us which of these steps do you find that you already do to some degree? And then which ones do you believe will be helpful for you to improve? Why am I asking that? Because I want to make sure that you understand that these steps are not tricky. Sometimes when we're talking about goals, individuals, and maybe even see it with your students, we get a little overwhelmed, right? We feel some challenges come up for ourselves. But when we actually stop and reflect on, wait, what are my practices day to day? What do I do every day? Find that we already do some of these steps. We already put some notes in an email or in a document. We already like I said, adjust strategies when we need to. Okay, so be thinking about that. Share some comments in the chat if you can think about some of these that you already do. Dr. McConnell said, I use MS Project for everything. MS Project allows me to set milestones and review my progress. That is awesome. That's a really good tool as well. That's a good one. Thank you for that. Overcoming challenges. This is the other big one. So a lot of times when we're talking about goals, a lot of the individuals that I work with will say, well, I don't have time, or this takes too long, or whatever the case may be. Well, we want to think ahead of time. What kind of challenges are we going to face, right? So identify those potential roadblocks and then anticipate ways to fix them, right? Again, this is part of your visualization process, whether it's when you're driving to work or driving to the grocery store, or maybe when you're grocery shopping. You can incorporate this into your everyday life when you're thinking about that goal that you want to pursue, especially if it's something really big, like publish a paper. Maybe you haven't published a paper in a long time, or this is the year you want to try to get into a specific academic journal. You want your work to get into that journal. When you're thinking about the challenges, visualize the ways you will overcome them. That is called identifying those potential roadblocks and overcoming them. Develop resilience. This is a whole few books, right? We've seen, if you've ever kind of looked at some of the popular books on the market, there's so many ways to develop coping mechanisms for setbacks, ways to maintain a growth mindset. This is really important when we're talking about goal setting, because we want to make sure we have that resilience built in our practices. Oftentimes what I find with faculty is they are really great at helping students do this, but they don't do it for themselves. So you really want to make sure that you have some practices, that ways that you're reminding yourself, this is hard, but I can achieve this, right? Versus there's no way I can do it, versus that fixed mindset, right? Seek support. Okay. And this goes back to what Dr. McConnell was saying. Talk to your colleagues, talk to mentors, let them know what your goals are. Doesn't have to be physically on campus. You can join professional groups in social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, Slack groups. Those are some popular areas where you can find groups that are professional groups specifically, that you can share your ideas, that you can connect with a couple people. Then maybe you kind of notice that you have some things in common, and maybe you even have some goals that are in common. And then of course, manage your time effectively. Um, that's again something that you want to take into account and adjust. Again, that's something you want to have a growth mindset around. A lot of times when I'm working with people and they're short on time and they're saying, well, I don't have time to pursue this, I don't have time to do this. Do you? Or is there a way that we can make time? Even if it's just a little bit, even if it's just 30 minutes a week, 20 minutes a week, what can we do? How can we grow in this area? And stay adaptable. That definitely ties into that as well, that growth mindset, making sure that we are committing ourselves to being adaptable in this process. So mapping it out. This is a very basic map of what I like to share. It's a great way to start. First, you're going to look at that self-assessment. Maybe you're going to do some journaling activities, some reflection activities, just thinking about it, just being in this workshop today. You're already kind of starting. Create a few SMART goals using that format. Again, these slides will be available to you later on this month. And you can also check in Spoke for more resources on SMART goals. Utilize our offerings that Evie is about to share, and think about the programs here at Westcliff. We could get you started in an area that you're interested in, and then monitor your progress and adjust your goals. Again, as part of your strategy, you want to make sure that you are adjusting your goals as you're monitoring them, revising that progress, even if you are revising the goal if necessary. Okay. So I've covered a lot. We're running a little short of time. I'm going to turn it over to Eve so that we can talk have a little bit more time to talk about the professional development tracks. Eve, are you there?
Yes, I'm right here. And one of the things
Excellent.
that I wanted to mention is that we want to create community between us, faculty members of Westcliff University. So if you feel like you need support in creating, drafting your goals, your professional development goals, you can always reach out to us and we can meet with you and work towards the achievement of those goals. In 2024, we have 4 tracks that we're going to offer faculty members. So we're going to have the first track that is empowering adult minds. Basically, we're going to offer reading clubs, and you will see that later, professional learning communities, and many different activities and initiatives dealing with what is it that you need to do to be effective in your class. Then we have a track 2 that is only based on assessment. In 2024, along with the assessment office, we're going to be performing calibration tasks throughout colleges to make sure that we are using the rubrics in the proper way and that we are actually using learning for assessment for learning. Track 3 will be about soft skills as a development journey. Basically, you're going to have the chance to be on Spoke and take courses on communications, on problem solving, those soft skills that sometimes we take for granted. So we've got you covered in 2024. And the last one will be dealing with course design. If you feel like one of your professional development goals is helping us, West Cliff University, design the courses that we offer, the programs, then this is a track that you need to follow. So in the next slide, you will see that we have 4 tracks. In the next slide, you will see that we are going to be offering 11 different initiatives covering all tracks. So we will offer live webinars, in the different tracks that I just mentioned. And then for those who cannot attend, we know that we're busy. We know that most of us are adjunct faculty. So if they're not here, it's not because they don't want to be here. It's that they're busy working. So we want to offer also interactive recorded webinars. So the webinars that we have now, we are going to edit them, add interaction, and add some activities so those people who could not make it can watch the recordings and get a certificate. We also have quite a list of bite-sized courses. So in 2024, we want to make sure that we offer like super short courses, 8 to 10 minutes for you in a very specific skill that you need, that you feel like you need to improve. Then we're going to have a reading club called an article and an app. And we're going to meet either Wednesdays or Saturdays. We're working on the schedule. We're still working on it. And we are going to, along with the Library and Digital Resource Center from the Light Center, we are going to select an article and an app that can help with the topic that we are going to be discussing during that month. That will be a monthly meeting. Then we're going to have professional learning communities. Basically, we get together, create community, as I said. We come with a challenge that we're facing in the classroom, and all together, along with the curriculum champions from the Light Center, we'll work on solutions on the challenges that you face in the classroom. We offer online teaching support. If you feel like your strengths are in the live sessions, but you are struggling with engaging your students on Gap, then you can request from us the online teaching support services. The classroom visits, if you want us to go to your class, observe your class in a non-evaluative way, but just like observe your class and give you feedback, we can also offer that service. If you feel like, no, I don't want anyone to observe my class, I want to go to another class and observe a colleague teaching to get ideas, we can also help you pair up with a colleague and do this. We are offering NFO, the new faculty orientation, this year as well. And every month we collect all the resources that we have offered during that month and send to you the PD Chica newsletter by the end of each month. And we are actually, right now, the last initiative is working on personalized professional development plans. Say that you have your goals, we can sit down and actually chart your path to success, as this webinar is called. So we sit down, we create an action plan, we create a timeline with you, only with you, with your personalized needs to make sure that you feel supported. We are here to support you. That's the whole idea of the professional development department. So those are the initiatives that we're going to have in 2024. We're still working on the catalog. When it's ready, we will be sending these to you. So any questions?
You have a couple of comments in the chat. I just want to make sure I pop back over. I'm sure many of you read them.
Sure.
So Dr. Dawadi said, in his observation, attending seminars is some of the practices that are effective. Writing daily reflection diaries, sharing everyday experiences with colleagues, and reviewing a what I did today are just some of those activities. Yes, if you find that those activities, especially when it comes to journaling, just be careful about restricting yourself to daily. If you feel like, you know what, as long as I reflect 3 times a week, that's an improvement. This is about enhancing your personal goals, but those are some great methods and practices that we can put into our goal setting strategy and apply it. Dr. Delfino said that recording milestones and reflecting regularly are some of the practices I've done to track my improvements with regard to professional goals. Those are really important steps, right? You get to kind of look at all the information plain right there. It's not in your head. You're writing it out. You created some time to reflect on it. It's really important. And then Dr. Dawadi said, one challenge, sometimes ELT people do not share the thick and thin easily with others in order to save their face. Yeah, I find that certainly uh, we have, kind of saving face culture, as it's sometimes referred to, with different populations. Uh, that's huge, and that I've certainly noticed it working with different groups of faculty. So just know that as Eve's talked about here, personalized PD plans. We're here to support you. That is a huge challenge sometimes, kind of taking down that wall of like, I don't, I want to protect my image, right? But in order to do a process like this and really achieve your goals and really go after what you want, sometimes it does require us to kind of push past that discomfort, even when it's something that's ingrained in us. So just wanted to point those out. Efe, do you want to talk about, we have a couple minutes left here. I want to make sure we do talk about our next upcoming events.
Absolutely. Before leaving the session, please make sure to take the survey that I added the link to the chat. We want to hear from you, your opinion, and yeah, how you like this session. But I want to also invite you to our next two initiatives. The first one is actually next week, in a week, Bridging the Gap, Mastering Moodle for Effective Online Asynchronous Teaching at Westcliff University. Basically, we are going to get together and we're going to have a conversation about how we can actually take the most advantage of GAP, all the features that we have there to be able to engage students in asynchronous learning. Also, we have on February 25th, I'm not seeing the screen. Yes, February 22nd. There is a required, which is a paid training, a required training on Capri. Capri is the teaching and learning framework for Westcliff University. So Foundations of Effective Teaching for Adult Learners is a required, again, paid training. So please join us for an engaging professional development webinar on effective teaching at Westcliff University. So we did a lot of Capri training last year, 7 in fact. So the next month, we're going to rediscover the innovative Capri framework developed and embraced by our institution. So it's really unique to Westcliff University. So we're going to be discussing a few techniques, a few strategies that you can use, and we're going to have kind of a refresher on what the Capri framework is all about. So invites have been sent for the Bridging the Gap webinar, not for the Capri webinar, but that will be done on Friday, tomorrow. So any other questions? Any questions? If not, we thank Professor Mitchell for facilitating today's webinar. We again offer our help, our support. You're not here alone. We're here to support you. If you need anything, just send us an email and we're going to be right away helping you. So we're just a click away. Thank you so much for attending today's webinar and see you next week, hopefully. Bye-bye, everyone.